Hi everyone, I'm Brian McLoughlin and we're here for another installment of Inside of Sports Access. We got a special guest on here today, Brendan Connelly, as our special co-host. Brendan, you just want to say hello to everybody?
Well, it's great to be here, Brian. I obviously have learned a lot about your show in the past few hours, actually. You guys have done a really good job here, and you've pretty much gotten well ahead of the game at such a young age, and we are rooting for you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the kind words. You just want to give everybody at home a little insight of, why you're in the co-host chair today?
Well, the other day, I actually work at 95.9 WATD in Marshfield, the South Shores radio station. I broadcast sports for the company, and I also dabble in the sports exchange show for them. I also write for the Boston Herald as a high school sports writer. I got my start out at UMass when I worked at WMUA there, and I also worked at the Daily Hampshire Gazette as a intern. And then as soon as college graduated, I was searching for a job quickly and walked into WATD, and it was a couple meetings, and next thing you know, I'm doing multiple things for them, and then the Herald gives me a call a few weeks later and hires me as well. It was a great start to my career in sports broadcasting.
Sweet, yeah, that's a great start, and now you're on the best TV show ever.
Of course.
On Webb-Hansen Cable Access. So thank you very much for coming on. Well, let's just get right into things.
Sure.
Let's talk about the Celtics. How do you think them making the playoffs?
That was a great step in my opinion. I was rooting for the Celtics to make the playoffs. I didn't know how far they were going to go in the playoffs, but this is a young group of talent that the Celtics have assembled, and they've really gotten them up to speed really quick. I wouldn't have thought that after only 1 year they'd be making the playoffs after a 1-year drought.
Yeah, this team, was battling near the end of the season and was battling for the 8th seed, and now they are the 7th seed. Definitely came a long way. I think Brad Stevens has done a really good job with this young team, and it has more of I've noticed, especially him coming from, Brad Stevens coming from, coaching at Butler, has that college team atmosphere in ways. You see it in flashes of, young talent, and it's a lot more energy. And seeing them from the beginning of the season till now, they've completely 180.
Oh my goodness! They've had so many different players at every position. It seems like they've gone through over 20 players on a roster, and most teams don't have that kind of a turnover. And what Stevens has done is and convincing these players to fight every game to the last minute, and he's really done a great job just turning this whole squad around as a whole. And then that's why I think he was voted in the top 5 for Coach of the Year at number 4.
See, I think he should have got at least second, if not won Coach of the Year. Feel that he probably had one of the more difficult jobs in the league, especially being only in second year. Being with the young players, with the turnaround. I think that he's done a phenomenal job. He's done late game situations. He's really been a master at that and getting the players to buy into the system that they've had.
And he's a master at drawing up plays, just like Doc Rivers was back when the Celtics were winning titles and winning 60 games a year. And we see him at the end of every game, the most recent one being against Toronto at the end of the year when they were trailing by a point, overtime, down 116 to 115 after a three-pointer by Toronto, and then he draws up a play. Jared Sullinger gets the ball and starts to drive to the hoop. He stops them right there because that's not the play that he wanted. So he redraws it, sets up Isaiah Thomas to run full court. Isaiah Thomas gets blocked, but Marcus Smart was standing in the exact right spot to clean up just in case. It's one of those things that Brad Stevens has mastered at doing, setting up his players in the right spot at the right time.
Yeah, and then like Marcus Smart has also, talking about him a little bit, he's, come on, with questions coming in out of leaving Oklahoma State to come into the draft, especially with his immaturities during his last year in Oklahoma. Coming up this year and becoming a role player and being somebody who really is made big shots. Like you talk about that, him hitting the game winner after Thomas was blocked. He also hit a 3 that literally catapulted them into being down to down and out to being ahead and giving them a chance to legitimately win a close game that they really needed it down the stretch.
Yeah, and now as we move more in towards playoff contention, now we're focusing more on Cleveland, LeBron, Kyrie Irving, these guys. The Celtics, they've made these games so far. It's not like they've been getting blown out. Like the first game was just a series of runs we saw when they ended up losing on a run at the end where the Cavs ended up winning 113-100. Game 2, it was Celtics had the lead for a bit, and then Cleveland took a 14-point lead at one point, and then the Celtics got Cleveland at the same amount of fouls as they had, got them into foul trouble, and got back into the game, made it a nail-biter at the end. But in the end, LeBron was just too much. And so right now, the Celtics are down 2-0 in the series. They are going back to Boston, but the question is, do you see this team having the opportunity to run the table pretty much?
I think that it's going to be very hard for them to continue and win this series, but I do see them at least coming out with one win. And I see that because the way that they played in the previous 2 games, that in either game 3, 4, or game 6, or at home, or if there is a game 7 somehow, being able to the Celtics to win a few games, if not at least one. I think going home, they're going to get those home cooking calls. They're going to get those. They're going to get the atmosphere that was going against them, and I think that it's not much, but it's something. And that I think that you're more comfortable playing at home, and I think these players are, they've showed the grit the last 2 games, being able to make the necessary adjustments. And I think the one thing, with the rebounding, that they had a really big problem game 1. Game 2, they came out in the first quarter. They
picked it up a bit.
Yeah, they really, they out-rebounded, for a chunk of that game. And they showed that they can make the adjustments needed. And I think now what they got to do is they need to make the adjustment of coming out, not coming out as flat in the second half, which I think has been a problem in the first 2 games, where they've had the issues of, they had the lead. Well, they were down 1, I think, at the end of the halftime, game 2.
Yes.
But only by 1, and they were leading for most of that half, and they came out extremely flat for the first 8 minutes of the second half.
And they got themselves into foul trouble, as I said before. They only 3 minutes or so into that second half, they already had 8 fouls. And next thing you know, you have LeBron and Kyrie Irving and those guys hitting free throws and building up this lead, and you're just falling apart. And as I know, we don't like to cry foul at these things, but we tend to see in LeBron series that the refs tend to go with LeBron.
Yeah, that is an understatement.
Yeah, that's it.
Quite the understatement.
Well, you gotta play to the audience. You gotta make sure you're not going overboard and sounding like just a diehard fan. But
yeah, it's okay to sound a little bit like a fan. I still say Celtics win in 6.
Okay.
But that's just me. As a fan. Legitimately though, I don't think they move on. I think that they win a few games, and they just use this series as a building block towards the complete rebuild, which they are a lot more ahead than they thought they would have been.
Oh yeah, this experience for the Celtics is huge. They needed this playoff series just to get experience for this young crowd of players. Most of these guys, including Isaiah Thomas, who's playing like an animal out there, scoring over 20 points a game in these playoffs. He's been single-handedly carrying the Celtics, according to the stats here. I think that's one of the reasons the Celtics are in these games, is because of simply him. They have a couple of guys averaging 10 points a game, like Turner, Crowder, Smart, Sullinger. But if you look at Cleveland's stat book, they've got Kyrie Irving averaging almost 30 points a game, LeBron averaging 25, and then Kevin Love with 16, and even Timothy Mozgov sneaks in there at 11 points a game. So the Celtics need to find a way to balance this whole lineup out. They did all season long. That's how they've been winning these games down the stretch, is their bench scoring. Their bench scoring hasn't been outplaying Cleveland as much as they should. And though they've been keeping them in the game, when it comes down to the clutch time, they fall short. They need to find a way to overcome that.
Yeah, and then what do you think your prediction for just ending this series? Do they move on? Do they fall apart? Do they even win a game? What's your thought on that?
Well, since the beginning of this series, I've always said that the Celtics are going to win 2 games in this series. Going into the series, I said that I've gotten into arguments with Heat fans and Cavs fans, whether it be on Facebook or in person, saying the Celtics will win at least 2 games out of this series, and then they'll be like, nope, they're going to get swept. And I'm like, the Celtics have just found ways to keep every game close. They're going to steal at least a game or 2 out of this series. My prediction, though, is so far at the series, I think it's going to end 4-1 or 4-2 in favor of Cleveland.
Okay. You're saying there's a chance.
I mean,
to win a few games.
To win a few games, I unfortunately for our fans out there in the Whitman and the Hanson areas, I don't see the Celtics. They're just too young. They haven't had this experience in the playoffs before. They're running into one of the top teams in the East, even though the East is nowhere near what the West is. Facing any LeBron-driven team with no playoff experience and entering the series, I mean, I think the Celtics will keep every game close. I don't see them getting blown out. But in the end, I feel like it's just going to fall Cleveland's way overall, 4-2.
Yeah. Well, you're saying that there could be a possibility of a Game 6, which just a little, for the fans who don't know out there, if there is a Game 6 next Thursday, there will be a little shift in what's going on in the Garden because there's supposed to be an Eric Church concert there.
Oh.
Same night. So Game 6 is a Thursday, and there's supposed to be an Eric Church concert. So
there's going to be some conflict there.
There will be some conflict, and I've heard some of the radio stations. Definitely, I listen to 95 Sports Hub a lot, and some WATD. I listen to both of those on occasion. They've a lot of talking about how they're going to move it. Eric Church has a lot of
followers.
A lot of followers, a lot of gigs directly after. I think he has to go all the way down to Nashville like the day after, which was the 24th. He only has a window of 1 or 2 days beforehand where they could have that. So it's going to be, if there is a Game 6 or a possibility of, there's going to be a lot of movement. So you got to stay tuned on that. Yep. I don't think that the Celtics will move because of the TV contracts. Basically run everything. So, but that's something for you viewers out there to really, look at and be aware of coming up soon. Mm-hmm. So, that is a possibility.
Definitely something we got to keep an eye on.
Yeah. Well, I think we, talked about the Celtics a little bit. Definitely, the rest of the series is going to be great to watch.
Of course.
Let's transition over to talk about the Boston Breakers. But first, I do want to say you are looking a lot more professional than I am. So.
Well, as we said before, I just got all dressed up. Like I try to get really dressed up for every day at work. You, on the other hand, you said that you usually get dressed up in a suit and tie, but you have to go somewhere after this.
Yeah, I have to go cover. I'll be covering a Women Hanson lacrosse game. So you guys looking out, watching this, be a little bit afterwards. Definitely check the Women Hanson Express, as I have weekly articles all the time. So definitely keep in touch with the Panther Athletics. That's my little.
I mean, why get your suit wet? It's supposed to rain later, I hear.
Yeah, it's gonna be traveling down to Plymouth North, so definitely it's gonna be a lot. It's gonna be cool. So usually on the show I'm wearing a shirt and tie, or I'm wearing Insider Sports Access polo, but coordinate. So my apologies for not coordinating with you better. But
it's your show.
Yeah.
I looked at myself and I said I dressed too much for this, I think.
I was thinking about it, but then I'm like, again, I gotta go cover.
You didn't want to just have to rip off your clothes and get in a car and fly down to Plymouth North.
Exactly. Well, speaking of Women Hanson sports, Boston Breakers are just in the midst of their 2015 campaign, and one of the roster members is a Women Hanson alum and probably one of the best soccer players, not only to come out of Whitman Hanson, but come out of Massachusetts in recent years. Christy Mewis, who went on to play 4 years at Whitman Hanson and play at Boston College before being drafted by the Boston Breakers, will be playing another season for the hometown team. Definitely go out and check out some of her games as they are playing at Soldiers Field at Harvard Stadium, moving over from the big Harvard Stadium because of renovations. Which also drove the Cannons, which we'll talk about later, to Gillette Stadium.
Yep.
Checked out Soldiers Field. It's a great atmosphere. I know a lot of their games this year are sold out. The fans are right on top of you, so definitely go and check out, not only against the Breakers, but definitely go check out Christy Mewis, who again, if you guys have ever been blessed to be able to watch her, she's quite the amazing soccer player.
Yeah.
She will also be playing against her younger sister Sam, who on July 26th, as Sam plays for Western New England Flash, and they will be coming to, Boston.
Yeah.
Sorry, I lost my train of thought a little bit. But do you always want to add a little insight on? I know you not really a soccer guy, but
well, it depends on what type of soccer we're talking about. Like if it's the Revs or World Cup soccer-based things, I have a little bit of knowledge on that. In terms of the Breakers, I unfortunately have not been able to get caught up on the Breakers. I just know they're a very well-run club there. They've been doing really well in past years. Always see good news about them, and they're a great company, in my opinion.
Yeah, so that will definitely be something, especially with a lot of local talent. Like they've been a team that has drafted locally, signed locally, and really have their training facilities over in Hanover at the U.
Yeah, I saw that they took over the old Starland Park there.
Yeah, so definitely there's a lot of local connections with this team.
Yes,
which you don't see with all the professional sports teams in Boston. Another of the not as well known, not as followed sports teams for Boston, the Boston Cannons.
Yep, lacrosse team, very well known for lacrosse. They always perform very well, it seems, but then at the end of the season they just can't get over, like the Celtics have against the Caps. They just can't seem to get over that hump.
Yeah, they've had their ups and downs. They're one of the flagship Major League Lacrosse organizations. They won the title back in 2011, which was really overshadowed by everybody still in the
Stanley Cup mode.
Stanley Cup hangover, kind of, Yeah, we won the Stanley Cup, but then the Cannons won a championship, and they got a small parade, but nothing major. They've definitely changed over the last few years. They're no longer without their big star, probably the face and one of the best lacrosse players in the world. Paul Rabel was traded over the winter to the New York Lizards. Wow, I'm confusing New York and New England.
I mean, come on.
I gotta get back in the game here, but different pieces, a younger team, kind of like there's a lot of similarities if you're trying to like roster-wise and rebuild-wise that the Celtics and Cannons have put together. The Cannons are already played their first game at home. They're playing at Gillette Stadium, like I mentioned earlier this year. They're 1-0. They got a lot of young players. They got Will Manny, who is captain this year.
UMass alum.
UMass alum, like yourself.
Yep, he was a very popular player out at UMass. They struggled in the past year, but in the years before that, he was one of the leaders of that team that really carried UMass lacrosse to the national circuit.
Yeah, Will Manny, again, like for you those that don't know, he's one of the face of the franchise players. Definitely, earned his way not only onto the roster but onto a lot of national spotlight with his performances last year, complementing Rabel and the more veteran squad that they had last season. As well as this year, he's leading the squad with Max Sebald and a few of the other local players, Kyle Barikoff and that. So there's a lot of they're a good team. There's a lot of energy around the program. 15th year, new stadium, really getting over the hump, and I think that they're going to be one of those teams that progressively are going to be more followers from the Boston area.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely can see that happening in the next few years.
Yeah. So, what do you want to talk about now? Now this is your turn. I'm going to put you on the spot right now.
All right. So, I would like to talk about the Red Sox and how they've started this year. What can you say about this starting pitching lineup? Is it everything you expected it would be?
They really need to work on their starting pitching.
That's what I've been saying this since the beginning. I think the Red Sox pitching is inconsistent, and it certainly has showed this way, as normally 2 and 3 starters normally do. So the Sox have a bunch of 2 and 3 starters. I've been saying this from the beginning, and I always said they needed a guy who can consistently shut people down. And Buchholz, I just don't see being that guy, nor do I see Porcello. They just both have seemed to consistently either give up a lot of runs or no runs whatsoever. And then Masterson seems to give up 2 to 3 runs every game, and then guys like Joe Kelly, you just don't know what you're going to get out of him, whether you're going to get like a dominating Cy Young type performance or you're going to get 7 runs like we saw yesterday.
Yeah, you're definitely, starting pitching, they need to work on that, and they have time. It's early enough in the season where they have time to make the necessary adjustments, go and get a player if they need to, which they do by the trade deadline.
Yeah.
But they have the hitting.
They have the hitting. That's why they've won so many games. They're top 5 in the league according to ESPN.
They need to work on the pitching. Buchholz is a mental case half the time. So you're either going to, like you said about other players, you're either going to get a really good performance or he's going to completely melt down by the second or third inning.
Yeah.
And then once he's in that mode, 2 or 3 games, what we've seen in the past is that Buchholz can't recover from it. There's something that not trashing the guy. I'm just saying that mentally, I think that he needs to work on that, and I think that he's a good pitcher. I don't think he's found the right grooves that he's need to.
We saw in the opening season game he was an animal out there, just constantly mowing hitters down and getting outs, dominating. And then next game over, he gives up 14 or 10 runs, I should say, to the Yankees in the first 3 or 4 innings.
Yeah, it's a roller coaster, and then you got the rest of the squad is still it's ups and downs. It's still early enough where you're finding out what adjustments you need to make and what everybody's kind of settling into, and still working out the kinks on a personal level.
Mm-hmm.
So feel like we have another within the next 2 weeks or so, you're gonna really have to see what is going to be made. You're going to see what this Red Sox team really is, and it's a crucial stretch that we're coming up to.
Definitely,
because it's early enough to make changes, but and still have a chance. But once you get that, then you're playing with some fire. And I think that a lot of people think, oh, you can wait till later. You can wait till
July. No.
Yeah, if you want to win. You need, and even though the East is down, if you want to win, you need to make the changes early, and you need to make them dominant changes. They can't just be something where you move around, within the system. I think you're gonna need to go outside the system, outside of the organization, and get somebody.
That's what I've been saying all along. I don't think they have anyone at the AAA level who can come in and save them at this time. They do have hitters down there who could give you more firepower, but they don't have any pitching, and they need pitching. That's what has been driving this team down or keeping them from progressing. They're still scoring 5 to 7 runs a game, it seems like. And Hanley Ramirez has been just a one-man show, it seems, at times for the Sox. But they can't just out-hit everyone. They have to find a way to get better pitching, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's for sure. Like you said, the hitting is there. Yeah, you got the David Ortiz, you got the Big Panda, you got Hanley
Ramirez.
You got pieces that are good offensively, but you also got this is somebody who hasn't been, a big time player, but has had a heck of a season so far. Brock Holt.
Oh yeah, well, Brock Holt is one of those utility guys you can put anywhere in the lineup, and every time you put him somewhere in the lineup, he produces. But it just seems like the Sox can't find that specific spot for him to keep him there because they have other players too. They're overstacked with offensive talent. And it's unfortunate because Brock Holt is performing like an animal. I keep using that word, animal. But
yeah, literally that's
what you got to call it.
Yeah, he's definitely been one of those players that he's definitely come up through the system, has been part of, it's always been on the roster fighting for, and not this year he's been. It seems like Farrell's actually given him a chance to really showcase his skills by getting more time on the field, and has really shown that could have a serious, not as just a utility player, but an everyday down the line. Not saying, I mean, even if it's not for the Red Sox, somewhere down the line within the next season, either by the end of this season or next year, he'll be able to go and be on any roster as a day-to-day player.
Yeah, he certainly has the talent, definitely the batting average. He's got speed. He's not really a power hitter, but he can occasionally give you a home run here and there, and then the rest of the time he'll just get on base for you and wreak havoc on the bases.
Well, we're running out of time. We're having so much fun.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah, we actually only have like 4 minutes or so. So you're not as familiar, we end the show with a little a little shout out, a little story tidbit that we might not have been able to touch on during our talks on the show.
Sure.
So if you just want to give out your little shout out for about a minute or so, and we want to hear what you want to say.
Sure. Well, I'll give a shout out to all my friends who are probably not watching in Scituate, but anyone out there who is in reach of Whitman Hanson Access TV, my family and everyone for supporting me throughout this journey I've been on so far. As for sports going on out there, in terms of the Bruins, I've heard rumors that Peter Chiarelli might actually be joining Edmonton as in the offices up there. So we'll see how that goes, and we'll be looking to see what the Bruins do in the next few days in terms of what they're going to do with their own GM.
Yeah, that's definitely a story that we're going to keep an eye on. Definitely we'll have more on that on the next installment of Insider Sports Access. My little shout out today is to the Whitman Hanson lacrosse team, who has been battling all season. Had made the tournament last year, 10-10. This year they've rebuilt this. Again, they have a lot of great players. They got seniors in Devin Ladden and Connor Campbell, who have really stepped up as leaders and been on in the program for the last since freshman year. Been on varsity. You got players that are juniors, and Kyle Bina, Dylan Thompson. Bina, like I mentioned earlier, scored 8 goals in a win over Milton earlier this season. It's been just an animal after missing a whole season of hockey. So definitely check out Whitman Hanson boys lacrosse if you can. And the girls team again has been another phenomenal year. So we definitely got a lot to look out on the Whitman Hanson circuit. We definitely got a lot to check out on the Bruins. For you guys, thank you very much for watching another installment of the show. Definitely check myself out on in your pages of the Whitman Hanson Express. Check out Brendan here with his work at WATD and the Boston Herald. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I always get the papers all mixed up.
I know. Well, I also do some freelance work for the Ledger, so you're not that far off.
Okay. I know you mentioned it to me, so I did. It's always good to freelance a little bit.
Yeah, freelancing. You're allowed to freelance. But
yeah.
Gotta be careful. And you can also follow me on my Twitter at bcon63, uppercase B, uppercase C.
Yeah, so definitely give him a follow on Twitter. Give myself a follow on Twitter at bmclaughlin22. Check us out at insidersportsaccess.net. We just revamped the whole site. We got a lot more content coming to you. We're going to be having a lot more articles pumping out. Definitely check us out. We got a lot of coverage. And you're going to like the new look because it's a lot easier to navigate. So also drop us a line on your thoughts. We'll talk about it. We'll even read your emails on the show at insidersportsmedia@gmail.com. It'll flash up on your screen. Again, we appreciate you guys all for watching the show, and we'll see you next time on Insider Sports Access TV.
Checking your fantasy league?
Nah, just my 401k statement.
Nice. Where'd you find the money for that?
I just been saving a little every month.
I can't seem to save anything.
Well, what about all this? What about the money you're spending?
What money? It's gone before I can get my hands on it.
I got a pizza for a Todd.
Hey, can somebody spot me?
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind.
It's 547.
Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org.